I think one of the most underrated and underused things in Dying Light 2 is the boosters. Boosters can give you a variety of different stat boosts, such as resistance to certain things, additional strength and stamina, and plenty of others. Today we're going to be taking a look at all 10 boosters, and we're going to be ranking each of them from worst to best. There's going to be a few things we're going to be taking into account, such as how effective it actually is, the cost of it, and whether it's actually useful in most situations. Just remember that this list is down to my opinion, so everyone can have their own opinion about which boosters they think are the best. Coming in number 10 is the Electricity Resistance Booster. This booster temporarily reduces the damage that you receive from electric effects. So the shock resistance is reduced by 75% and has a duration of 240 seconds. I'm sure that there are plenty of reasons why players might actually want to use this booster, but to me I think it's completely useless. It's honestly a waste of crafting materials. I mean, if you think about it, what enemies in the game are you going to be fighting that are going to be using electricity against you? The electric shock effect only comes from certain things like traps and certain environmental objects that you can trigger. Honestly, if you're finding yourself dying from electricity, then it's probably going to be more your fault than the enemy. The only way that you could possibly be dying from anything electricity related is by triggering something on yourself. I think they're pretty useless, and that's why I have to throw them down on the 10th. Coming in at 9th is the Swimming Booster. The swimming booster temporarily increases your lung capacity, enabling you to stay underwater for longer. There's a 50% reduction in the stamina drain while swimming, and it has a duration of 90 seconds. Now, to be completely honest, I was probably going to rate this 10th, but now that I think about it, it's not as bad as the Electricity Resistance Booster. The only thing is, a lot of Dying Light 2's main story missions have air pockets and things for you to actually use in order to make sure you don't drown. There will never be a time in the main story when you'll actually have to use one of these boosters. The only advantage that I would find in one of these is maybe if you're trying to go to the sunken city while it's full of water to get airdrops. Honestly, the swimming booster is pretty irrelevant. I don't think it's worth it, and there's probably no places in the map where you're going to be swimming other than the sunken city. It's definitely not worth investing a lot of trophies in, since you're only going to be using it a couple times. Honestly, I was trying to test how long you can stay underwater with it, and the booster actually ended up running out before my stamina even drained anyway. Coming in at number 8 is the Fire Resistance Booster. Now, the concept behind this is pretty smart. I think that something like this is definitely needed, but the question is, what do you actually need this against? Once again, there's no enemies in the game that have any sort of fire ability other than elemental goons in one mission. I guarantee you that you're not going to be finding yourself using this much. The only areas where I find this might benefit you is if for some reason you're anywhere near an exploding gas can, or if you're in a puddle of oil. This will reduce the fire damage that you take, however I think it's completely ineffective. There's no way that you're actually going to be using this in any combat fights. The only benefit of this is if for some reason you're in an area of the map where there happens to be a lot of things ignited on fire and you don't want to be taking that extra damage. 240-second duration with a 75% bonus fire resistance is pretty good, however this is not going to be used in a lot of situations. It's pretty irrelevant, I wouldn't get it. Coming in at number 7 is the Poison Resistance Booster. So for once, this is actually a booster that you can use in combat. Now, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be using this a lot of the time, but this one is much better than the Fire Resistance and Electricity Resistance. We all know that there's spitters who spit the projectiles at you. These projectiles are toxic, so this Poison Resistance Booster actually helps give resistance to that same effect. So if for some reason you're fighting a large group of spitters at night, or maybe in a mission, this thing will seriously help you take a lot less damage from them. It grants 240 seconds duration, and it gives you plus 75% poison resistance. Once again, I'm definitely not going to rate this any better on the list because it's something that you only use for a niche reason. I never really find myself fighting against spitters often, and when I do, maybe I'll use this once or twice, but I feel like it's just not worth it. Honestly, you're better off just trying to kill the spitter or just run away before getting hit with this poison effect. Coming in at number 6 is the Immunity Booster. You might be wondering, why for some reason is the Immunity Booster all the way up at number 6? Well, there's a very obvious answer to that. There's so many ways in this game that you can get your immunity to increase, whether it be going into UV lights, just sleeping, or even just happening to walk somewhere where there just happens to be UV lights, such as bases for the PK and for survivors, or random camps. There are so many locations where you can just walk to and there just happens to be UV lights that can help you. And one other thing is that UV bars are extremely essential. If you go into any places such as dark hollows or dark locations where you don't have any UV lights on you, you can crack a UV bar and rejuvenate that whole entire immunity. To be completely fair, the immunity boosters are pretty cheap, and early game I know they're going to be essential, but when you start to get halfway through the game or even towards the end of the game, I found that I've just picked up so many that I can just use the ones I picked up. Actually upgrading your own immunity booster and crafting them, I feel like it's such a waste. You get given so many across the game, and there's really no need to actually have more. Overall, the immunity boost is pretty good. It's an essential thing you definitely need early game, but when you get towards the end, you start to realize it's not as valid as what you think. Coming in at number 5 is the Endurance Booster. So the Endurance Booster basically increases your maximum stamina. Sadly, it doesn't do anything like increase the regeneration of your stamina, however it does increase your actual total stamina. So your total stamina will be increased by an extra 40%, and this lasts for 240 seconds. I have to say the Endurance Booster is one of those boosters that kind of just sits in the middle. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. It has its times for use, but it's very specific. One time where I found the Endurance Booster really made a big difference is if you're kind of mid-game and you're trying to go from the VNC tower onto any other buildings to collect airdrops, it gives you that extra boost in stamina to be able to make it. Endurance boosters are pretty good earlier game, especially if you're fighting a lot of enemies, because it gives you that extra stamina that you can use in fights. I personally only use this thing more for fun when paragliding to allow me to get an extra distance. To be honest, the further you go through the game and the more inhibitors you get, the less likely you're going to be needing this. It's definitely something that's fun that if you just want to kind of pop it and then mess around, just go crazy using your stamina, but overall I don't think this thing is something you should invest in. Alright, coming in number 4 is the Rage Booster. So the Rage Booster basically enrages you, which increases your resistance and melee weapons damage. So the Rage Booster is definitely one of the more mysterious boosters. It doesn't exactly give you a lot of information on what it actually does for you. You might be wondering, why is this not way better on the list? Well, there's actually one main reason. First of all, the duration of it is only 45 seconds, but those 45 seconds have to be the worst 45 seconds of your life, because this booster actually creates an extreme blur on your screen. So even thinking about using this against enemies is just a dumb idea. Maybe if you're trying to fight against something like a goon or a demolisher, it can be a good idea, because they don't move very fast and you can just hit them in that same position. But if you're fighting anything from volatiles to revenants, it's just not a good idea. They move way too much. The blur is so significant on your screen that this enemy could literally move out of the way and you wouldn't even notice for a couple seconds. It just makes you feel so slow. Your movement is just so hard to track, especially when your screen is just completely blurred. Seriously, the Rage Booster gives you amazing stats, but that blur just completely ruins it. You won't be able to keep track of where you are and what you're doing. So overall, I would just have to say that the Rage Booster is just kind of a hit or miss sort of thing. Coming in third is the Muscle Booster. So the Muscle Booster actually increases your melee weapon damage. Now I have to say the reason why this one is so much better than the Rage Booster is because it doesn't blur your vision at all. Although it only grants an extra 50% melee damage over the Rage Booster, which gives 100%, this thing has a 180 second duration and it produces 3 every single time you craft it. Now it might not sound as much compared to the Rage Booster, but an extra 50% is seriously massive. You can take out enemies in double the speed. With biters, that might mean the difference between hitting a 2-shot on them or hitting a 1-shot. If you're interested in going for legendary farms against demolishers and goons, you need to have this. This thing seriously allows you to finish them off at double the speed. Muscle Booster is definitely one of the more underrated boosters out there, and I definitely suggest that you guys upgrade this one. It's extremely cheap, and honestly, this is got to be one of the stronger ones. Coming in number 2 is Regeneration Booster. I cannot tell you how important it is to have these. The basic medicine you can craft in the game is pretty good. However, when you start to get to the end game and your health increases with inhibitors, you start to realize it takes 2, maybe even 3 of them to heal you. The Regeneration Booster, so much better. Every single time you craft it, you craft 4. The duration lasts for 180 seconds and it regenerates 5% of your health every second. That might not sound like much, but you can quite literally regenerate all of your health within only 5-6 seconds. Combining this with being in a fight, every single time you can take a hit, your health will regenerate. As long as you don't take too many hits within a certain amount of time, then you can basically regenerate every single hit that you're taking. I would have to say this is probably the best healing item you can have in this game, and overall it's definitely a great pick. Coming in at number 1 is the Toughness Booster. So the Toughness Booster actually increases your physical endurance, which reduces the amount of damage you take. It reduces the damage you take by 50% and it lasts a whole 210 seconds. Not only does it do this, but it actually softens your hits, so when demolishers or goons swing at you, you don't actually get knocked over, rather just knocked back slightly. Now, I'm not even kidding when I say this. This is the one booster that you have to have if you want to just become a god in Dying Light 2. Not only does this thing actually reduce the damage you take just from enemies and melee attacks, however, you can seriously tank so much damage. I'm talking about suicidal damage, explosions from gas canisters, burning in oil, volatile attacks, biter attacks, hard traps. Anything that can cause you damage can pretty much be blocked from this. However, just note, the only thing that it doesn't seem to reduce damage in is fall damage. So don't go jumping off any high roofs expecting to survive. This honestly has to be the strongest booster in the game. One of these boosters could honestly make you go from losing a fight to winning it within seconds. It's honestly crazy how powerful one of these is. I'm surprised it hasn't been nerfed yet. In that brief 210 seconds you have, you can pretty much take any damage you can imagine and you'll receive barely anything for it. You could probably get into a fight with like 10 volatiles and still come out winning. so I definitely recommend you go and upgrade it straight away. Trust me, you will not regret having this. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for the video. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree with this list. I definitely think that the toughness booster deserves the win just because of how powerful it is overall. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video guys. I'll see you guys all next time.